I'm Eric Loy, and welcome to Eric Loy Interviews. On this podcast, we talk with folks from the VTuber community on their channels, their talents, their stories, where they come from, and their plans for the future. Iliana Ichorsong joins us. Hello.
Hello. Very nice to be here.
I appreciate you coming on. Please introduce yourself to everybody.
My name's Iliana. I am your cozy vampire VTuber. I play a lot of fighting games, MMOs, and the harp over on my Twitch channel, and also sometimes do ASMR over on YouTube.
Yeah, that's quite a range of things that you do on the various medium. When you got started doing content creating, was that something you wanted to do? All sorts of different things.
It is a little bit of a range. So when I started making content about a year and 3 or 4 months ago, I did not have any idea what I wanted to do, really. It started off for me as a hobby. I was encouraged to sort of give it a shot because I've loved video games my whole life, and I developed some really bad social anxiety during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
And some friends of mine encouraged me to try streaming as a way of trying to overcome and maybe get a little bit of exposure therapy, in a sense, toward that anxiety. But since then, it's evolved, and I've evolved from playing nothing but Monster Hunter to all sorts of video games. I play the harp on stream. I do ASMR, all sorts of stuff now.
So when did you, obviously, the harp is an amazing instrument. To me, I could listen to it for days at a time. But how did you decide to become a harpist, and when did you get started with it?
So those are two very different answers. I first realized that I really wanted to play the harp when I was young. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time. I played piano for about 15 years growing up, and I don't remember what it was for, but as a very, very special occasion, my parents actually brought me to the orchestra. And even though I don't remember by this point what the piece was, I don't know if I ever actually even knew, there was a harp solo at the orchestra that was just, it was awe-inspiring. I was absolutely, absolutely enraptured, and it's become one of my very core memories, wanting to learn the harp from that point. But I wasn't able to until I became an adult, was able to afford a harp of my own, all of that sort of stuff. So I've been playing the harp now for about 2 years, a little bit longer than I've been streaming.
Wow.
And it's been lovely. I'm far from a professional, but there's hardly anything in the world I like more.
Wow, that's really amazing to me. It's an amazing instrument to start with, and folks say, why did you wait so long? It's not like you can go down to the corner music store and buy a harp.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah,
At the time,
yeah, there's not balsa wood harps laying around to practice on.
I wish. Although they probably wouldn't sound very good.
No.
At the time that I purchased my harp, it was cost more than every other possession I owned put together, including the car. I think that is still true.
Oh, wow. Well, the cars I drive, it would definitely be true.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
But what the harp can do, I don't think people realize how many different ways there are to play it, the different sounds that come out of the harp. When you saw that being played and you heard it being played, was that something that entered your mind, just the many different uses it has?
I do think it did, but not to the extent that I've since, discovered that the harp has. So, first of all, I should be clear, there are two very different kinds of harps. There's the pedal harp and the lever harp. I play the pedal harp, which is the bigger, bulkier version that you tend to see more in orchestra. Lever harps are also called Celtic harps. They're what you might see somebody playing out in a town square or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, harps are very versatile. Not quite as versatile as, say, a piano or a guitar, insofar as harps are not chromatic. But many people, I think, have this image of the harpist as this soft, delicate, graceful angel um, who's playing this soft, delicate, graceful instrument. And that's really not quite accurate. Harps are loud. In fact, harpists are generally recommended. We usually wear hearing protection at least on our right ear while we're playing, um, as to not damage our hearing. That soundboard is huge and it produces everything from those small, delicate sounds to these booming, loud, bassy noises.
Mm.
Uh,
That,
and then, although I don't do a whole lot of this, there are several harpists, including a few TikTokers who do quite a bit of this, that love to hook their harps up to pickups, or even they have electric harps and they play metal music, rock music with
mm.
guitar pedals and all of that sort of stuff. It's a much more versatile instrument than I think a lot of people give it credit for.
Oh, absolutely, and it really to be able to learn how to do it. I would not have that ability in my hands to do that. But I would think you have to be very ambidextrous to play that. You can't really favor one hand over the other, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're right about that. You really do. Typically, your left hand will be playing the lower octaves, and your right hand will be playing the upper octaves.
Mm.
And you do need quite a bit of dexterity in both hands to make that work. Not tremendously dissimilar to, say, the piano, for
Mm.
example, but the motion of a harp is very different because whereas a piano, all the keys lie horizontal, and gravity, in some sense, actually assists you in resting your fingers on the keys and everything. You know, harps are vertical. All the strings are vertical toward and with relevance to the ground, and it can be tough to place your fingers properly, especially during fast passages.
Wow, that's amazing. And you do play the harp online on occasion.
I do. Sometimes, although I am primarily a video game streamer and VTuber,
Mm.
I do sometimes treat my audience, I suppose they love hearing it, to some harp playing.
Oh, that's excellent, folks. We'll have the links to where you can hear and see what Iliana's got going on in the description for this interview. As far as VTubing itself, when did you get started?
I remember I started at the very, very end of November of 2022. So at this point, I guess I said a year and 4 months earlier, but I guess it's closer to a year and a half now.
Yeah. And why did you decide VTubing was the thing for you?
Because of that social anxiety that I mentioned,
Mm.
I really just thought it was almost there were two parts of it. So one part is I thought with that anxiety, it was perhaps maybe a little bit more comfortable
Mm.
to not have to put myself out there, show my real face, and all of that stuff. Especially because at the time I was working a job where I was just in Zoom meetings all day,
Right.
every day. And I knew from very personal experience there how exhausting it gets to just see yourself on camera 24/7. I didn't want that as a streamer, which when this activity was supposed to be a hobby, was supposed to be something that was helping me get out of my shell a little bit. So VTubing provided a really nice way for me to feel a little bit more comfortable while also trying out the whole streaming thing.
Mm.
And then there's also the other perspective of I think that VTubing and facecam streaming are quite different in some ways. Of course, they're both streaming, but VTubing allows you to do many, many things that are creative, that are interesting, that are innovative, that you simply couldn't achieve, at least with not some pretty substantial resources as a facecam streamer.
Right.
Likewise, I think as a facecam streamer, there's a little bit more personability that sometimes you don't get as a VTuber. But pluses and minuses to both for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a difference, although they can cross over and work together, obviously. But the you get a chance to kind of use the model as a little bit of a shield, where it is you, but it's also not you. You may have a little more, maybe have a little more confidence in what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're interacting with chat.
Agreed, agreed. And while most of my chat probably does know what my real face looks like at this point, because I do occasionally play the harp on facecam streams,
Mm.
it's still a level of, exactly like you said, it's a shield in some sense, it's a level of comfort.
Yeah, and then so yeah, it does still take a lot of confidence and courage to play an instrument in front of people. Um, for someone who, as you mentioned, had some problems with social anxiety, was that something you had to overcome once you started learning to play the harp?
To some degree, yes. Although having a really, truly wonderful teacher whom I feel very comfortable playing in front of made that not quite as bad as you might expect, unfortunately.
Mhm. And now you have a chance to play in front of people who are standing upside down from you on the other side of the world.
It's true. And that's been a little bit of an adjustment, certainly, but it's been very, I mean, fulfilling, enjoyable.
Hmm.
It's nice to share music. It's nice to make music. It's nice to be able to play music for other people. I think it's one of life's greatest joys, really.
So how did you get into the ASMR type of things? Um, that seems to be kind of a growing subset of VTubers and what they're able to do online.
That's a good question. I never thought that I would be into ASMR, performing it or listening to it.
Hmm.
I only ended up getting into ASMR a little bit indirectly. Uh, One of the things that people say, one of the very most sent messages in my chat, the things that I hear the most are that I have a very soothing voice, that I have a very relaxing voice, that people really like my voice.
Right.
And pair that in addition to I have a background in acting. Um, After I graduated high school, instead of going off to college, I went off to Manhattan and studied at an acting conservatory, acted off Broadway for a couple of years.
Wow.
It felt in some ways really like a natural fit for me to at least give it a go
Mm.
with ASMR because I had the acting experience, I had the voice for it apparently, according to everyone else at least,
Absolutely.
and it's been really fun. It's been really successful as well.
Does it kind of scratch?
It's a
Does it
oh, go ahead.
does it kind of scratch that acting itch for you? Um,
It does.
yeah.
Yeah, because I don't do. There's a lot of different modes or styles of ASMR, I suppose. So a lot of people, when they think ASMR, what they're thinking is blowing into your ears, scratching your ears, kind of
Yeah.
clicky, clacky noises into one of those binaural microphones with the ears on the sides. That is a perfectly fine form of ASMR, but it's not what I do.
Mm.
I do more. What I do when I do ASMR, it tends to be more on the acting side of things. I do more role play. I do more acting. Scripts are what lots of people tend to call them, and improvisation as well
Mm.
with chat.
Hmm. Would you rather have a script when you're doing one of these, or would you rather improvise?
I find that the best for me is actually sort of a middle ground where when I'm preparing for an ASMR stream, for example, I have, say, a list of bullet points, notes I want to hit, things I want to move, topics I want to move through. But within those bullet points is there's no line by line reading or anything like that. It's purely improvisation from that point on.
Wow. And each time you do it, it's a slightly different setting, or do you tend to come from the same place when you start your ASMR type activities?
I do tend to come from maybe not the same place, but from the same theme.
Mm.
Um, Interestingly enough, I have found that what people like the most in terms of the ASMR I do is the sort of yandere ASMR.
Mm.
A little bit playing a character that's a little bit unstable, a little bit unhinged, perhaps. Which is funny because it's not typically who I really am on streams, but or in real life, of course. But it's a character that I think I can hit the notes for fairly well and enjoy doing, and that seems to be what my audience likes the most.
So you were off Broadway for a little while. Was that something that you wanted to do, acting, when you were much younger?
No, no. In fact, I actually went through something of a similar story. It's a little bit analogous to my VTubing
Hmm.
career so far,
Okay.
in the same sense that I got into VTubing originally to try to combat some social anxiety. And now it has become my full-time job and something I devote hours and hours and hours to every week.
Hmm.
So too was acting that for me in high school. So I was pretty adrift in my freshman year of high school, pretty lost, didn't have much interest in almost anything.
Hmm.
But I was required by my high school to take a performing arts credit one of the 4 years. And I had an extra slot class space open that freshman year. And I said, you know what? I'll just get it out of the way. I'll take this theater class. Well, it turns out I absolutely fell in love with it.
Hmm.
Became a major, major part of my life in high school and then beyond as well, of course. And while I don't do any formal acting anymore, I've sort of moved on from that life. I felt it wasn't as fulfilling in a professional capacity as I wanted it to be.
Hmm.
It's still something that has made a real difference in my life and certainly I think impacts my VTubing today as well.
Well, yeah, I think certainly it's something that will anytime you're in public, whether you're just talking into a microphone or whether you're in front of a stage, you are uh, you tend to put a lot of those same type of tips and traits into what you do in front of a lot of people. When you're trying to project your voice, when you're trying to get across a certain emotion, those types of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And while I'm not somebody who tends to play a character, so to speak, many VTubers do, at least to some degree, play a character on stream.
Hmm.
I think that's amazing. I stream hours that are long enough that I simply couldn't sustain it when I tried.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't tend to play a character, but there are still, like you mentioned, a lot of experiences that I've had while acting, a lot of things that I've learned from acting that I can still apply toward being an entertainer, even as my realist self.
Yeah. Now, with that background and what you're doing now with the ASMR online and recordings, have you made any headway into actual voice acting?
It's funny you should mention I have. Not in a professional going to the recording studio in Los Angeles sense,
Hmm.
but I have actually recently published a demo reel
Mm.
and have been working on quite a number, in fact, of smaller, anywhere from fan projects to smaller projects that I'm not able to talk about yet.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool because again, that you've got a very specific a voice that has its own characteristics, and with your acting background and with the ASMR you're doing, all of that really points in that direction that you should be able to make quite an impact in that.
It's something that I don't know how successful it will be for me at this point, but I certainly hope so. Uh, I think it would be a great way and a more manageable way for me to get back into acting in that capacity and to lend my voice to some really great projects. I'm excited for the ones that are already in the works.
Cool. So we're going to be hearing you soon on these projects. We'll keep an eye out for it or an ear out for it as the case may be. For the channel itself, have you got any plans coming up for the channel in the future?
I have a number of things that I'm planning. One of which I can talk about right now, which
Okay.
is that I'm planning a. I can't get too into the details right now, but I believe on August 11th, that date is a little bit subject to change,
Hmm.
but most likely on August 11th, I'm going to be holding a concert, a full-blown concert and all of that jazz. And it should be, I've had a lot of preparation has already gone into it, a lot more needs to go into it, but I'm certainly looking forward to that.
Mm.
Um, and in addition to that, I'm actually kind of actively at this moment sort of working on expanding the repertoire of just events that I run on the channel. So I think for a long time I settled into a little bit of a pattern of, let's play video games together and hang out like we're sitting on the couch next to each other. And that's
Right.
great.
Yeah.
But I think that it wasn't as creatively fulfilling as I wanted it to be.
Mm.
And right now I'm sort of working hard on making sure that every week I do at least one stream where it's an event of some sort, a production. It's something beyond just let's play some video games together.
Mm.
Um, so tonight, for example, I'm running my first tournament in a fighting game that I play, Guilty Gear Strive.
Wow.
And we'll be casting that. I've never commentated or casted any sort of video game tournament before, so that'll be a whole experience.
I've done a lot of sports, but I haven't done a video game tournament before in my life.
Me neither.
That'll be a lot of fun though, and
It should be.
it should work well for audio.
Yeah,
I would think.
I hope so. I
Yeah,
hope so.
yeah. The,
And beyond that, there's karaoke, there's all sorts of showcasing of other VTuber community members and such, something I'm working on in various ways right now. All sorts of stuff.
so have you been able to with the various things really get into a good relationship with your followers and your chat?
I think so. I'm really proud to say that I have a very wonderful chat and a very loyal follower base.
Hmm.
Um, I think that many people, many streamers, unfortunately do find there's the old adage that everybody repeats that the chat is the reflection of a streamer.
Hmm.
I think that that is true to some extent, but I do think that many streamers also do end up saddled with chats that are not exactly what they want, or are not super respectful, are not as enjoyable for them as they would like,
Hmm.
or for streamers to fall into an unfortunate pattern where if they try to, they become known for one thing, and if they try to switch that thing, whether it be a game or just chatting or karaoke or what have you, nobody really tags along with them for the next experiment.
Right, right.
Um, I fell into that at one point, maybe 6 months ago, but I'm really, really happy that my chat is lovely, amazing people. I very rarely have any issues with chat. And in addition to that, I also have a community that kind of likes to watch me for me and whatever I do, and I couldn't be more grateful for that, honestly.
I think that's the biggest thing is that people have to remember, whether it was radio back in the day with disc jockeys that nobody remembers us anymore, but uh,
Oh, I do. Unfortunately, I'm getting old.
well, you ain't seen old yet. um,
That's perhaps true.
but the DJs of the past who were playing records that you could hear on any other radio station, people would come back to listen to them based on their personalities. And I think that's what a lot of VTubers need to remember too, is that they could watch different people play that game, but they're coming for you to play that game. And they want the ones who are sticking around are the ones that are interested in you, what you do, your personality, and how they're entertained by that. And
And I do think that that's, like you said, the most important thing. It's very hard, I think, to be sustainable if people aren't coming for you,
mm, yeah,
even as a hobbyist, let alone if you're trying to do it more seriously.
yeah, yeah, I think so. And I use the word marketing on occasion, which causes some VTubers to run screaming. It did for us in radio too, I'll tell you that. But really, it is. It's getting your name out there to the right audience, and building a good foundation to go from. Sounds like to me you got that foundation built pretty well.
I certainly hope so. I feel like I do.
Well, so what have you not done yet, game wise, that you'd like to do on the stream?
That's a very good question. I do some MMORPGs, not as much as I would like though, and I would like to get more into that on stream because MMOs have been the most major type of game in my life, and I love them to death.
Hmm.
But aside from that, I really would, game-wise, like to start exploring more smaller games, indie games, retro titles as well.
Hmm.
Um, things that are a little bit off the beaten path more than I have so far.
Yep. So
One that comes to mind immediately is Animal Well, which released just a few days ago, as you may know.
yeah. Well, now what is that one all about?
That is It's a pixel art style, but very, very pretty game. It's somewhere between a puzzle game and a Metroidvania.
Hmm.
So lots of interesting room for innovation in there, it seems. And I've only heard wonderful things about it.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to hear a lot more wonderful things about Iliana coming up, and you can too if you check out the links that we're going to have in the description for this particular interview. Iliana, I thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, and you've got a lot of things to do with the full-time career in VTubing. But I appreciate you coming on. It's great to meet you, and if you got something real big coming up in the future, let us know, and we'll get you back on. We'll update everybody.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening to Eric Loy Interviews. Join us again next time when we talk to another member of the always interesting VTuber community.